Motorcycle dealerships are running the biggest scams of the century. Behind the polished showrooms and friendly staff lies a world of inflated prices, hidden fees, and financing traps that could turn your dream purchase into a long-term regret. Today, we're yanking back the curtain on motorcycle dealership scandals and talking about the stuff that the dealerships might even kill to keep hidden. So, if you're ready for some hard truths and want to stay one step ahead, hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss this. Imagine the situation. You saved up, you made your plans, you walked into that dealership thinking you were about to buy a piece of freedom. But apparently, what you really got was a fistful of lies, prices jacked up, and a loan that would haunt your bank account for years. Motorcycle buyers are just plain fed up with being played. And guess what? The same industry that played them is now wobbling like a beginner on a dirt bike. Let's dive right into the mess, starting with the price explosion that nobody saw coming but everyone felt. After global supply issues, many dealerships raised prices far beyond reasonable margins, often blaming supply chains while taking advantage of reduced inventory to maximize profits. Riders everywhere watched as bikes they could once afford suddenly cost as much as a small car. And let me tell you, it wasn't just about a few missing computer chips or boats stuck at sea. Nope, for many, it felt like a calculated power play. Dealerships had a whole song and dance ready. "Oh, it's the microchips," they'd chirp. Or, "Shipping is a disaster," or, "Labor costs are sky high." My grandpa used to say, "Excuses are cheap, but they can cost you a fortune." And boy, did some of these excuses feel expensive. Because behind all that chatter, something else seemed to be going on. It looked like supply was being choked on purpose. Why? Because if there are fewer bikes on the showroom floor, dealers can demand more money for the ones they have. Simple, yet pretty sneaky, right? And for a while, it looked like they got exactly what they wanted. With fewer bikes rolling in, those price tags started changing faster than a chameleon on a rainbow. The manufacturer's suggested retail price, or MSRP, used to be a guideline, a starting point. But after things got crazy, MSRP became more like a vague suggestion, like telling a toddler not to touch something shiny. Dealers started slapping on market adjustments as if they were a standard feature. A bike that was supposed to be $10,000? Poof, now it's $12,000, maybe more. That awesome $17,000 cruiser you dreamed about? Suddenly, it's $21,000. And hold your horses, that didn't even include the destination fees, the prep charges, or those dealer-installed add-ons you never asked for, but somehow ended up on your bill. And then, the tide started to turn. Buyers started staying home. The initial hype wore off. Riders ran out of patience, and more importantly, they ran out of extra cash. Suddenly, dealerships had too many bikes and not enough people waving money around. But those sky-high prices were just the beginning of the headache for many. The real gut punch often came after you put your name on that dotted line. Now let's talk about the motorcycle loan trap. If the price on the sticker didn't make your jaw drop, the financing office was often waiting with another nasty surprise. It used to be that a motorcycle loan was a pretty short-term deal. Maybe 2 or 3 years, a fair interest rate, and bam, you were done. You owned that bike, free and clear. But folks, for many, that era is a distant memory. Today, buyers are getting pushed into loans that last 5, 6, even 7 long years, all just to make those monthly payments look a tiny bit smaller. But those smaller payments come with a giant, expensive catch. Because interest rates have shot up, stretching out that loan just means you end up paying a ton more in the long run. What starts as a $20,000 motorcycle can easily end up costing you $35,000 or even more by the time you make that final painful payment. And here's where it really stings the heart. These bikes, for most people, aren't for commuting to work every day. They're just passion purchases. They're for joy, for freedom, for that weekend escape from reality. Most folks aren't using a giant Harley or a super fast sport bike to pick up groceries. But when you're shelling out $500 a month for 7 years, that joy can start to feel like a heavy burden. But that's not even the worst part. Some dealerships seem to zero in on buyers who don't have perfect credit. They offer these folks super high interest loans with really bad terms, knowing that these customers might be desperate or less likely to understand all the complicated fine print. Riders are told, "Congratulations, you're approved." And then they're handed a stack of papers with interest rates that could make a loan shark blush. Over 10%, sometimes even 15% or higher. A lot of people don't even realize they've been caught in a trap until the bills start arriving. But price and loan traps aren't all. Shady practices can involve a bike's history or get you tangled in unexpected ways. Is it a few bad apples or deeper rot? Let's peel back another layer and look at some of the downright fraudulent sales practices. First up is something called odometer rollbacks. This is an old-school scam, but it's still kicking. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, estimates that over 450,000 vehicles, and yes, that includes motorcycles, are sold each year with fake odometer readings. That costs American buyers more than $1 billion every single year. Odometer fraud is when someone illegally tampers with the bike's mileage counter to make it look like it's been ridden a lot less than it actually has. This lets them jack up the price because, hey, fewer miles means it's worth more, right? Not if the miles are fake. Then there's title washing, where a vehicle's title is moved between states to erase negative marks like salvage or rebuilt status. This hides a bike's troubled past, allowing dealers to sell damaged bikes at higher prices without disclosing the truth. With prices, loans, mileage, and history manipulated, what other financial games are played? How deep does this go? Let's talk more about financial misconduct, because it definitely doesn't stop with a few rolled-back odometers. We're talking about some serious, large-scale financing fraud schemes. Large-scale financing fraud also occurs. The Department of Justice has handled dealership cases involving schemes like creating fake loan applications, causing massive losses for lenders, like one $75.9 million case. And then there's the infamous yo-yo financing scam. This one is particularly cruel. Here's how it often plays out. A dealer lets you take the motorcycle home. You're all excited, thinking the financing is a done deal. You show it off to your friends, you're already planning your first big adventure. But then, a few days or even weeks later, the dealer calls you back. Uh-oh, they say. There was a little hiccup with your loan. The terms have changed. And guess what? Those new terms are almost always much worse for you. Higher interest rates, bigger monthly payments. This tactic preys on your emotions. You've already bonded with the bike. It feels like yours. So they pressure you into signing a new, less favorable financing agreement just so you don't lose it. Now, you might think, once I buy the bike, it's mine. I can do what I want with it, right? Like if it needs a repair, I can take it to my trusted local mechanic or use parts I find at a good price? Well, not so fast. This brings us to the ongoing right to repair controversies. Some manufacturers, and Harley-Davidson has been a big name in this, have gotten into hot water for their warranty rules. These rules sometimes basically said that if you used aftermarket parts, meaning parts not made by Harley themselves, or if you had your bike serviced by an independent repair shop instead of an official dealer, your precious warranty could be voided. The Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, which is like the government's consumer protection agency, has started to push back hard against these kinds of practices. They've been stating very clearly that consumers have the right to repair their own products, or choose who repairs them, without being unfairly punished by having their warranties voided. There's even a big legislative effort called the REPAIR Act. The whole idea behind this act is to make sure that regular folks and independent repair shops can get the tools, parts, and information they need to fix things. Ironically, while happy customers who can easily fix bikes should mean more sales, some companies make repairs harder and costlier. Are they pushing customers to dealer service departments to boost profits? With customer issues, repair restrictions, and internal problems, what happens when dealerships can't juggle it all? Do they just vanish? And the answer is a resounding yes. Sometimes they do. We've seen significant dealership closures and clear signs of mismanagement leading to their downfall. Even historic dealerships, places that have been community staples for ages, have had to lock their doors for good. The U.S. Sun reported on a Harley-Davidson dealership in San Francisco that was an incredible 110 years old when it finally closed. Often, these closures come down to bad management decisions and a failure to adapt to how the market is changing. The way people research and buy things, including motorcycles, is evolving rapidly. If you don't keep up, you get left in the dust, no matter how long you've been around. Remember all that price gouging and those tricky loan traps we talked about earlier? Well, actions have consequences. When buyers feel ripped off, they stop showing up. When inventory starts piling up because bikes are too expensive or loaded with tech nobody asked for and can't afford, dealerships get into deep financial trouble. Many dealerships don't actually own all the bikes on their showroom floor outright. They finance them through something called floor plan loans from manufacturers or banks. That means every single unsold bike is costing them money in interest every single day. This leads us to how riders started to fight back. One buyer simply walked away from a deal that felt wrong. Another decided to skip the shiny, expensive showroom altogether and bought a great used bike from a private seller. Then, online forums and social media lit up with stories of rip-offs, shared invoices, and warnings, sending a clear message: enough. They just stopped going to dealerships they didn't trust. Bikes that used to sell out in days started gathering dust for months. Meanwhile, the used motorcycle market absolutely exploded. Riders realized that a 5-year-old bike with 10,000 well-maintained miles on it could give them the exact same thrill, the same feeling of freedom, without all the dealership drama and the insane new bike prices. Websites like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, along with local private sellers, became the new motorcycle showrooms. Even more telling, some riders decided to quit the hobby altogether. And what about those brand new bikes sitting in the showrooms? Well, it turns out a lot of people just don't want them, especially the newest, fanciest, most expensive ones. Modern motorcycles, which used to be symbols of raw, simple freedom and easy-to-understand mechanics, have been transformed into rolling computers. Big touch screens, multiple complicated ride modes, adaptive cruise control, electronic suspension, and constant complex software updates were supposed to be the next big thing, the future of riding. What they really wanted was that raw, visceral connection. The satisfying vibration you feel through the handlebars, the mechanical growl when you twist the throttle. With every fancy update came an even fancier price tag, and often much higher repair bills down the road. And when things go wrong with all that complex tech, you usually can't just fix them in your garage with a basic set of wrenches. Many older, experienced riders look at these new bikes and feel like the industry has completely left them behind. If new bikes aren't selling and dealers are struggling, who's pulling the strings? Are manufacturers innocent, or is the problem higher up? For years, many motorcycle buyers probably assumed that the companies making the bikes and the dealerships selling them were pretty separate entities. But behind the closed doors of corporate offices, that line got incredibly blurry. Some reports, and a whole lot of frustrated riders, suggest that big brands like Harley-Davidson, BMW, and even Honda weren't just passively sitting by while dealers jacked up prices to astronomical levels. What might have started as a way to manage production and inventory during those turbulent supply chain hiccups seemed to morph into a full-blown, deliberate pricing strategy for some manufacturers. It often began with those widely publicized supply chain disruptions. Manufacturers did reduce how many bikes they were making, and they frequently talked about chip shortages and global shipping problems. Brands quietly started raising that manufacturer's suggested retail price, the MSRP, on their end. Then, they seemed to lean on dealerships to accept fewer bikes, but sell them at much higher profit margins. Harley-Davidson, for instance, arguably leaned into exclusivity and higher prices as sales slowed, seemingly tolerating dealer markups. BMW followed with popular models, and even Honda saw dealers listing bikes well above MSRP. Manufacturers often remained silent, as higher dealer profits can lead to more orders, benefiting the brand's financials while squeezing buyers. The MSRP effectively became the starting price, the absolute floor. This brings us to what some are calling the aging rider crisis. The massive motorcycle boom back in the 1980s and 90s was largely powered by one huge, enthusiastic group of people, the baby boomers. But now, that generation is getting older, and they're aging out of riding in large numbers, and fast. Many riders over 60 are reluctantly deciding to hang up their helmets for good. Physical limitations, growing health concerns, and just different financial and lifestyle priorities start to take over. Younger generations, like Gen Z and Millennials, aren't stepping in to fill that rapidly widening gap in nearly large enough numbers. Younger folks today often face crushing student loan debt, sky-high housing costs, and tend to live in crowded urban environments where owning and parking a motorcycle might not be very practical or affordable. Instead of truly adapting to the changing desires and financial realities of potential new riders, some of the major brands appeared to panic. They started introducing even flashier, more expensive bikes, loaded with even more complex tech gimmicks, seemingly thinking that would somehow magically attract a flood of new, younger buyers. Perhaps the biggest scandal is how the entire industry, from manufacturers to salespeople, seems to have deliberately pushed away both loyal and potential new customers, like a restaurant changing its popular menu to trendy, unwanted dishes and wondering why it's empty. So, with fewer buyers walking in the door and a lot of unsold, very expensive bikes gathering dust, what are desperate dealers doing now? It can start with what appears to be a fantastic discount. They'll show you an MSRP that was already inflated way beyond any reasonable justification. Then they'll generously apply a sale price that brings it down a little bit, but it's still often thousands of dollars above what the bike should truly cost in a fair market. Dealers might try to lure you in by talking about incredibly low monthly payments, making that dream bike seem suddenly within reach. But those tantalizingly low payments are often stretched out over an incredibly long period, like 6 or even 7 years, with a massive amount of interest hidden within the total cost of the loan. Dealers might tell you that the specific model you're interested in is in extremely short supply, that this is the very last one they have in stock, or that 5 other eager buyers are coming to look at it later today. They try to build this intense, false sense of urgency to pressure you into making a decision and signing on the dotted line right now. With all this ongoing turmoil and eroding trust, some industry watchers are asking a very serious question. Are we witnessing the slow, painful end of motorcycle dealerships as we've always known them? A new way of buying motorcycles is slowly but surely emerging, one that could potentially cut the traditional dealership out of the picture almost entirely, direct-to-consumer sales. Harley-Davidson has already begun testing online sales platforms, allowing buyers to configure their bikes digitally and then pick them up from designated distribution hubs. BMW has been trying something similar in parts of Europe, offering fixed-price online orders with the option of doorstep delivery. The potential benefits of this direct sales model for buyers are pretty clear and very appealing. No more stressful haggling over price, no more mysterious hidden fees slipped into the paperwork at the last minute, no more pushy salespeople trying to upsell you on extended warranties or accessories you don't really need or want. If manufacturers truly embrace selling directly to customers on a large scale, thousands of local, independent motorcycle dealers could end up closing their doors for good. One trend that's becoming painfully clear is that motorcycling for many is sadly but steadily turning into more of a luxury hobby, an expensive pastime for the well-off, rather than the accessible thrill it once was. Affordable, simple, entry-level bikes are disappearing from manufacturers' catalogs at an alarming rate. Riders started pushing back, hard. The used motorcycle market went through the roof. Independent mechanics and small, local motorcycle shops started booming. Online forums and social media groups came back to life with riders sharing information, tips, and warnings. This new wave of riders is often leaner, meaner, smarter, and more connected through technology than ever before. So, from inflated prices and bad loans to repair restrictions and an industry that can push away its own fans, the motorcycle world clearly has its challenges. But knowledge is power. Understanding these pitfalls helps you protect yourself, make smart choices, and still find that joy on 2 wheels. And have you dealt with any of these issues when buying a motorcycle? Let us know in the comments. And if this helped you avoid a bad deal, hit like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep these exposés coming.